Hello, my friend, and welcome to the 395th episode of the Sales Podcast. I'm Wes Schaefer, the Sales Whisperer, your host. Today we have Mr. Brian Kurtz. I talked about him last time. Author of Overdeliver, as well as a couple other books, but decades spent in the direct mail business, so he knows what converts. I talked about that with the last episode. Tracy Reuter got into social media advertising, how to do what works on that platform. But I talked about it's crazy to spend money on traffic until you dial in your conversions. Okay. Brian knows about that. Next week's guest is Rob and Kennedy. They are the founders of a quiz type survey sort of platform that I'm now using. You can see how that works at bestcrmforme.com. And they talk about how to dial in your conversions, how to survey your people, how to know what they want, and then give them what they want. Dun, dun, dun. What a shocking secret, huh? And that's what we get into with Brian. He's the author of the book Overdeliver. I linked to that in his notes. And, speaking of over-delivering, you've heard me mention once now, but for the next 90 days, I've got a new sponsor called Intercom. These folks do over-deliver on converting browsers, right? Tire kickers, maybe, window shoppers, getting them to engage, identify what's going on, and then convert them. So let's take a listen to what they're up to. What does insight-driven messaging look like for sales? Like a whole lot more deals, fast. Jump on high-intent leads in the moment with Intercom, the business messenger that extends the reach of your team 24/7. Intercom creates more opportunities for you by booking meetings and collecting data from leads automatically. Take Intercom user Elegant Themes. They now convert 25% of leads through Intercom's messenger. Deals don't wait. Get them with Intercom. Go to intercom.com/deals. That's intercom.com/deals. Deals don't wait. You've always heard me say time kills deals. So what are you doing to not only get the traffic to your website, but convert them? And then if you convert them from a visitor to a lead, what are you doing to move them to a paying customer? If you struggle with that, I talked about this in the last episode. I've changed up the pricing on the 30-day sales growth program, and I told you why I'm doing that. But it's just $49.99 a month. No contract, no hidden agenda, and I'm bringing back the live calls. So I want to engage with more people, help more people, and help you do it affordably. All right. This is how I got started back in 2006. I paid $600 for a course, for a 12-week course. I got a PDF and live group calls. That was it. But that person that led that, Steve, he was actually a guest on the Sales Podcast years ago. Super smart guy. But it changed my life. It gave me strategies, tactics, a plan on how to be a professional salesperson. Before then, I was making great money. I was making over $100,000 and had since '98. But I was just working hard and just grinding myself to the bone. Then I got a strategy. I got tactics. I got a plan, and it made all the difference. That's why I'm bringing it back at a more affordable price. I want more people in it so I can help more people, and you still get the 1-year guarantee. So come join us, all right? 30daysalesgrowth.com. Now, let's bring on Brian. Brian Kurtz, author of Overdeliver. Build a business for a lifetime playing the long game in direct response marketing. All the way from Connecticut. Welcome.
Oh, well,
to the Sales Podcast, man. How are you?
I'm psyched to be here. I followed your podcast, and then when I got the opportunity to come on, I was very excited. So thanks for having me, Wes.
Well, thanks for your book. I've been digging through that. Nice forward from Jay Abraham. Very cool. And you've run in some, I don't know what's the word, not fancy.
I would say
elite circles.
Oh, yeah, but I'm not elite. But yeah, they're elite.
Yeah, but yeah, I mean some big names in direct response marketing, copywriting, and listeners of the show, if they've listened more than once, they understand my emphasis on copywriting. As we were talking before we hit record, I've always said I realized in corporate America, I was a marketer trapped in a salesman's body.
Right.
Sales and marketing should get along.
Yes.
And they usually do not. But the smart ones do, and they make it. So that's why you and I are talking and everyone else is listening, right? Yeah. So it's 2019, halfway through. We're closer to 2020 than we are to 2019.
Yes.
Does direct response marketing have a place in the world today?
Oh God, that's a softball, but it's even more so than ever before. I think that the beauty of the one thing about my career is that I spent 34 years in a company, not a big company, but nice size, but an entrepreneurial company, and was sort of an intrapreneur. And then I went out on my own 5 years ago. And it's interesting because, when the internet came along at one point when I was at Boardroom, there was a lot of people that were really scared. They were in this print and old market, and all of a sudden this internet came along. And actually, I saw the internet as the ultimate direct response medium. It's everything that you want and more, because in like direct mail and TV and radio in the old media, or at least, the older media, offline media, you're spending so much money to get to your message, get your message out, that it's painful that you have to be so slow and so methodical, and you can't just hit send and expect something to happen. And the beauty of direct response today is that if you take those same disciplines and not hit send right away, and you spend a lot of time with relationships, and you have inexpensive media all over the place, that is an amazing, it's nirvana for a direct response marketer, because you can spend time building relationships, you can spend time giving away your best content, you can spend time doing all those things and still sell, but you don't have to sell as quickly, you don't have to sell as aggressively. And so I think if you do it right, I think direct response is a phenomenal way, in terms of measurable advertising, making sure your media pays out. I had a guy say to me once, an old timer, he said to me, you've really made it in marketing when you can actually pay for the media and it actually pays out. And I think what happened with the internet is that a lot of people realized the media was cheap, and they could be kind of sloppy, and they could just throw anything out there, and it didn't have any negative effect if it didn't work. But I maintain that it does have a negative effect, because if you put something out that's incongruent or something that's not right, it's going to come back in less response in the future. So you have to be methodical. But the advertising opportunities are now infinite. And the ability to use direct response in this new media is just, I'm a kid in a candy store. It's fantastic.
But with too much opportunity, that can be a problem, right?
Yeah.
2 nights ago, I'm talking with my 21-year-old son. He is squared away, good kid, has money in the bank. He's an entrepreneur. 1 more year left in college, no debt. And he's struggling because he has too many opportunities, and I'm telling him, I'm like, you got to pick and go fast, right?
Yeah.
If it's a dead end, you want to know soon. So get to the end of the road and turn around and block that off. If it's the right path, you want to be going fast anyway.
Right.
So, it's starting to sink in, but most people, they can't pick. Right. They're like, I should be on Snapchat and on Instagram, and I need to be doing Facebook Lives, and now I can do LinkedIn Lives, and I should have a YouTube channel, and I'm really not doing enough Facebook Lives, and I need more streams, and
I think Perry Marshall, who's a great marketing consultant and a guy that's spoken at my masterminds and is a good friend. He has a thing that he calls it Maze 2.0, MAZE 2.0. And what it is because he knows that an entrepreneur is always going to go after the next shiny object. And so you can't, but you can't keep going after this when you haven't done that. But what do you do first? And what do you do? So I think that he has a thing. You want to be everywhere, and you want to pick a few things. He has an axis, a quadrant thing, where he's got web at the top, and let's see, he's got recorded and live across one axis, and the other axis is I think it's web and like online, offline, or something. And you put all the different media choices in any one of those quadrants, so where it fits. And if you pick one or two in each quadrant, then it'll feel like you're everywhere, even when you're not everywhere. Now, that's not an answer to the question of what do you do first and what do you do next and all of that. But it definitely gets your mind so that you don't just get distracted by everything that's out there. And you said something really important, which was, it's like, people say in business, you should, hire slow and fire fast. Same thing with media choices. You should get in fast and, get in slow, but then get out fast when it's not working. And that goes back to direct response. That direct response, if you're gonna, key your responses and make sure that you have, that there's going to be an ROI on everything that you do, you're going to get in and you're going to get out quickly, and then you can go on to the next. Or you can revise your message and rework it if it's close. But so the combination of direct response with coming up with a few media choices that fit best for you is, I think, one of the great things that an entrepreneur can do. It's easier said than done. I understand that, and I understand it's true. But it's really, you can't be everywhere, but you can pick things that can make you feel like you're everywhere.
And everyone's looking for perfection, right? And they feel like they've got to be bleeding edge. Like I sell a lot of CRM software, and people are like, which one should I get? And it's like, whichever one you're going to use, because the reality is if you're using Excel spreadsheets and sticky notes, any CRM is going to be better.
Right.
But they want the optimized best, right? It's like, well, I want what Tony Robbins has. Right? Like, you're a year into business and you're working out of your garage. You don't need Tony Robbins tool, right? You don't need Tiger Woods golf clubs, right? Go get some used sets at the Goodwill or whatever, and see if you even like the game.
I was in my book. I have a thing on when I talk about lists, offer, and copy as the triumvirate of a direct marketing program. And it's like there's like the 40-40-20 rule. It's like 40% is list, 40% offer, 20% is creative. And of course, creative is not half as important. But what that says is that if you have great creative to the wrong list, you're going to get 0 sales. But if you have great list, great offer, and mediocre creative, you'll make some money. And one of the things that I read in when I was doing some stuff for the book and I was researching the 40-40-20 rule, I made it the 41-39-20 rule because I felt list was the most important. You get the list right first, then get your offer, and then you bring great copy, and that's how you get direct marketing nirvana. But what I did was I went on the internet and I just went down some rabbit holes on the 40-40-20 rule, and people are debunking it, and some people say it's gospel, but it's not. It's just a theory, and it's a good place to start. And there was this one guy wrote an article, and you'll appreciate this being in CRM and being in software. He said, no, the 40-40-20 rule is dead, and it's really the 25-25-25-25 rule. 25% list, 25% offer, 25% creative, 25% technology. And I said, I almost threw up in my mouth because, it's not, the technology is fantastic that we have today. It's important. But, Bill Bernbach, we were talking about Mad Men. One of the Mad Men, Bill Bernbach, said it best. He said, never adapt your idea to never adapt your technique to the idea, adapt your idea to the technique. So get an idea, get what you want to do, And then you find the technology, you find the media, you find everything. To make technology as important as list, offer, and copy, to me, was just a terrible thing to say. Now, there are people who believe that they run their business as a, technology business, and they want to be on Facebook Live, so they get on Facebook Live, but they don't have any of the, they haven't done a list sort and a selection. They don't really have an offer, and they don't have great creative. So I think you're lost if you start there. If you start with list, offer, creative, then go find the technology or the sources, I think that's a much better way to go. So, I appreciate you saying that, because technology is not a crutch. It's a tool, but it's a really important tool. And I'm not debunking technology, but that just illustrated what goes on sometimes in online marketing today.
Are you saying the medium is not the message? Is that what you're saying?
It is. I mean, the medium is the message, but yeah, I guess I'm not saying that. I am saying that it is, because the medium is, the close to the list and close to what you're buying, whereas the message is the creative. So yeah, the medium is the message, but you still have to have a great message. So
you got to have a great message, right? Because if I just think, well, there's a lot of kids on Snapchat, I'm gonna go get on Snapchat. But if I'm an idiot, I'm just quickly telling this younger generation not to buy from me.
Yeah, you will get some sales if you target right, but it's not a business for the long haul.
Right.
It's a very short-term play.
So if someone comes to you, talking about the message, right? And the old adage of, 80% of your effort goes into the headline, right? 5-to-1 and 4-to-1 and all those ratios. How much time do you spend with someone on helping them define their message first? Because I've always told people, it's like, I feel like I'm an investigative reporter, right? If I can dig in and I got to find that nugget,
right?
Then things kind of, they don't necessarily take care of themselves, but they start to fall in line.
Yeah, that's a really good way to look at it. I think that, the idea of going a mile deep as opposed to a mile wide, really dig in. But I do think that, with email, especially if you're starting an email, for example, and writing subject lines that lead into a headline of a video sales letter or an online letter. And the same was true with offline. You wanted to work on the outer envelope. You wanted to work on headline and first paragraph and the lead in, but you also want to know all of your elements. So I spend a lot of time, what I like to do, you can't write copy by committee. So if you're writing copy, the best way, especially for someone who's knows their business better than anybody, let them just, blank sheet of paper, write down all your ideas, just, basically splatter everything across the page. What I like to do is take like that and try to find the nuggets, because the best copywriters I've ever met, and I've worked with all of the best copywriters, one of the things that they're amazing at is being great interviewers. And when they can interview a client, they realize that the client has the copy in their head, but they just can't write the poetry that the writer can. And it was interesting, when Gene Schwartz, who's one of the greatest writers ever, was doing a package for my company, Boardroom, he interviewed Marty. This was when Marty was launching the first product, Boardroom Reports, and he interviewed Marty for like a couple of days, and he got all the information down. Then he wrote a package, which was the launch package for Boardroom Reports, which was our first newsletter. And it was like read 300 business magazines in 30 minutes and get the guts of each or something like that. And then that was the lead. And then there was a lead paragraph of what you're going to get. And everybody said, Gene, this is great. What a great package. And Gene just looked at us and he said, I didn't write it. Marty did. I interviewed him and he's the one. But I think it's a team effort. You have to but you got to get something on paper first. I think going to a copywriter and saying, do this, here's a book, write a package. That's just the beginning. I mean, as you said, you have to really dig in, and you've got to dig in together. Like you do sort of this, archaeological dig together. And then I think if you're not a writer and you're the owner of the company or you're the entrepreneur, then the writer then has to come up with all the ideas, but they've done the digging. They've done what it is. I also have something in my book about the 7 characteristics of every great copywriter I ever knew. And it's universal. Like every one of these had all 7 of these. And one of them is insatiable curiosity, that they have to have and that's why they're great interviewers, because they're asking very good questions. They're getting into the crux of everything. I mean, they also have to be hungry, and they also have to understand direct marketing. They have to be humble. There's a lot of other things. They have to be passionate, but that insatiable curiosity is so important, and they can get to, they won't quit until they get to that big idea. They get to that. And as you said, when you talked about getting to that nugget, you can get down and get down and get down, and you get down to that one nugget, and that then becomes your subject line or your headline. So it is a process. Sometimes you start with the headline and the lead paragraph. Sometimes you start with raw material, and sometimes it's a little of both. But it's not easy. Like, people who think that, copywriting is an easy button, I just know so many copywriters who are not A writers. They're B's and C's, and there is a talent, and it takes time, and it is a real, I always say copywriting is not a commodity. And anybody who I get calls all the time and emails, Brian, can you recommend a good copywriter? I said, wrong question. What's your avatar? What are you really trying to do? Because there are copywriters and there are copywriters, and everybody's got a specialty. Right. And you want to be able to really dig in when you're choosing a copywriter as well. So those are some random thoughts on that. That was a really good question.
You're talking about being curious. I came up with a list years ago of the new ABCs of selling, right? Instead of always be closing. And one of them is always be curious. You got to dig in. Good. Got to peel that onion back.
Yeah.
In all these great copywriters, because I think of myself as a copywriter. I've never done big campaigns or.
Yeah, I haven't done that either, but I think everybody's a copywriter, but.
Yeah, well, I think they have it in them. Most people don't. They don't think they are. They don't think they're a salesperson. They don't think they're a writer. I mean, it's crazy, right? People want to get on social media, and they're neither sociable nor are they marketers. But anyway, right. But it's like I don't have a formula, right? I don't have a checklist that I follow. I know what I'm looking for. It's like those Supreme Court justices describing pornography, right? It's like, well, you know it when you see it.
You know when you see
right?
it.
Like I know it when I find it. Like, okay, that's the nugget. We're going to run with that.
Right.
And then I just.
Yeah, I think you and I are similar, because I wrote a blog post. I blog every Sunday morning, and I wrote a blog post once, and I said I'm a copywriter wannabe. And then I just wrote a blog post, and somebody wrote to me and basically called me out and said, what do you mean you're not a copywriter? I noticed that you did this in your email, and you did this and you did that. And there was there was actually a subtle sale in there. And I looked at it and I said, he's right, because that was what I grew up with. I didn't even realize it. And then that's when I came up with later on, I said, that's why I say everybody is a copywriter of sorts. So if you and I are probably similar, like I know when I see it, I can give a lot of advice on headlines, on copy platforms, general, what is the big idea? Like you said, you see it and you know it. Can I write a package or a letter, soup to nuts, to sell a product? I don't think so. I don't think that is my skill. That's the skill of someone who's been doing it a long time, who really wants to do it. But I know the best copywriters, some of them, I just had lunch with one yesterday, one of the best in the world. And, it's always the same thing. I hate writing. They hate writing. It's painful. It's so painful, but
Yes.
they're good at it, and they can teach it if they want. They say those who can't do teach. In copywriting, those who can do it can teach it if they want, if they don't want to do it anymore. So there's a lot of that.
It is hard. Yeah, and I think I can say this as a father of 7 that saw my wife
You're a
go
brave
through.
man. You're a brave. Oh, your wife's a brave woman.
She's a brave woman, right? I've seen this 7 times. Is writing a great anything is similar to delivering a baby, at least for a man. I mean, seeing my wife worry and nesting and getting prepared and researching, right? I mean, I will, and I can understand how Gary Halbert would the things I've heard of him, right? I've had Bond on the show, and like he would put people off, and I don't know if he was putting them off like because he was lazy or if it was just sometimes we need that back against the wall, that deadline,
get
the creative juices flowing because it's hard.
It's really hard.
And
although I think you'll lose your argument with the childbirth on the labor pains, but that's beside the point.
Oh, for sure. That's why I put the caveat in there. It's as close as a man might come. It's just
it is. I mean, all the writers I know, it's like it was like they always say it was like birthing a baby.
Toss and turn. You worry. You research. You put it off. You come back to it. You're worried. And then you launch it. You're like, oh, this is glorious. This was so worth it. I think I'll do it again. Like, what?
Well, the end justifies it definitely is worth it.
But, I tell people all the time, though, that because they want to come to me for help. And I tell them straight up, like, if you want to save money, just have me consult. Because if you want me to write, it's a lot of money. It's because it's hard. I said, but look, go look in your sent folder on your email. You've got gold and platinum sitting in there, things that you've just done in the heat of the moment. Maybe you're about to lose a sale or somebody critiques your product. You're like, no, you're missing the point. Here's the boom, boom, boom. Yeah. Here's why you should get it. I'm like, you got $1 million sitting.
Yeah, I'll take it a step further. I mean, I'm a big believer, and most copywriters are, in swipe files. And, I've got, in fact, on the resource page for my book at overdeliverbook.com, I've got a swipe file of 400 pages of ads going back to 1900. And they're all like, you say, well, I always say stealing is a felony and stealing smart is an art.
Yeah.
And you can, just going after those swipe files and reworking them. And, Jay Abraham, speaking of Jay Abraham, he has a file of, which I have in my on my hard drive, of 10,000 headlines that he's accumulated over the years. I mean, just if you're stuck, I mean, no one should ever have writer's block.
Yeah.
There's so much available, and every copywriter, just about every copywriter that is also in that in that list of Mount Rushmore and maybe 2 Mount Rushmores, they all have swipe files that are unbelievable. And so, I never thought of going back to your email sent file, but that is also a gold mine when you're stuck, because you never should be stuck. And I think, that's why I've given away swipe files. Like I did an event in 2014, the Titans of Direct Response, and I had all the great direct marketers there from the last 50 years. And I gave away, 1,000 pages of swipes. I had, 2 huge books of every package that my company Boardroom did. And then Dan Kennedy was one of the speakers, and Dan Kennedy did a book just for that event of 270 pages. And that one, actually, that Dan Kennedy swipe file is in my bonuses for overdeliverbook.com. So I'm glad you mentioned that, because what an amazing resource that all of us have in our sent file, but also in accumulating swipe files, and save stuff. When you see a sales letter that you like or something, have a file, have a separate email address that just stores them there. And so you've got them there in your files. And I'm contributing to that, because in my first book, I also had a swipe file. So I'm really big on swipes, and I will continue to sell them. I have I sell two products, one from Bill Jamie, who's one of the great copywriters, and Jim Rutz, who's one of the great copywriters. And it's their swipes, just their entire collection of everything that they wrote. And I'll do more of those as I go on. So,
right. So, you talk about in your book, over-deliver. You talk about just really giving of yourself, right? And early on, I don't know, maybe Dan Kennedy, maybe I took him too much to heart. Certainly from my own style, it didn't quite feel right, because he seems, when you meet him in person, he's not aloof at all, but he's hard to reach, right? No cell phone. You got to mail, you got to fax.
Got to fax, right?
And
I mean, that's the gate he puts around his life. So,
right. So I tried to play hard to get like that. Then I met this other person, kind of a guru, well-known person, and she gave me her cell phone number. She's like, just call me.
Yeah.
And I was like, this person must be overwhelmed. She's
right.
famous, New York Times bestselling author, blah, blah, blah. And I've never abused it, right? And she would get back to me.
Right.
And as I've shifted, I'm like, just reach out, right? I changed my consulting. It's unlimited, right? And people, they don't abuse it.
Yeah, I think the Kennedy model is interesting. I like watching it because it gives you an extreme of protecting yourself and not letting people in so that you don't get overwhelmed. But, everybody has to adjust for what they want to do. I'm terrible the other way. I'm the kind of guy that would give out, my cell phone doesn't work in my office, so I give out my email. But, I with Kennedy, in fact, he faxes me all the time, and we're in regular communication, and he's spoken at my events at least 3 times. And he once sent me a fax. He was asking me for something, and then he opened it up, and I realized that he said something like, I hope things are going well with you. I hope that I forgot how he phrased it, but it was sort of like, I hope you're in and out with you're gallivanting with all of your people. And he goes, that's not my style, but I know it's yours, or something like that. So he recognizes that, I'm not going to go that route, but he has his way and I have my way. Now, when I tell him that I let people slide, or I give them, time to pay up their bills or things like that, he says, he just won't do that. Either you pay or you don't pay. And so he's got, some strict rules, and he does not depart from them.
Yeah.
And I don't think I could live my life that way. It sounds like you couldn't either. And that was really, really important to know, that I can look at this and say, I can take some of this.
Yeah.
I'm not going to take anywhere near all of it. And it's a really good lesson in how you protect yourself. I mean, I have a lot in my book about, giving of yourself 100-0, and, giving in a way that is total contribution. See, I think that if you're gonna ask people for stuff eventually, to come out with an ask out of nowhere is just horrible. And, I won't even ask for years sometimes, and they would offer before I'll ask.
Right.
And that is a much better way for me, but I have to give a lot to do that, and you have to get taken advantage of a little, maybe. So there is a problem with over delivering too much.
Yeah.
But I do believe that, if you...
Well, and there's a problem to having too big of walls, right?
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Both ways.
That's right. This is a funny story. So I was in a car. It was at the Titans event in 2014. And I was in a car. We went. The event ended, and there was a special VIP dinner. And I'm in my car. I'm driving in my car, and in my car is, like, next to me is Dan Kennedy, and in the back seat is Gary Bencivenga, who's one of the greatest copywriters who ever lived, and Joe Polish, who's one of the greatest marketers and networkers who ever lived. And I'm just like, I wanted to drive around for a couple hours.
You better have both hands on the wheel. Turn the radio off.
Yeah,
focus.
Right. Focus on this, right? But the funniest thing happened. So Joe Polish, and if you know Joe, he just, you call him, he gives out his cell phone. He can't help himself. He's going to help you no matter what. So we're in the car, we're talking, it's great. And Joe gets a phone call on his cell phone, and he picks it up and he starts talking. Definitely not something urgent, and definitely not family. Wasn't like an emergency, but someone asking him a question, like your friend who's the best-selling author who gave you her cell phone, and he's answering the question and he's doing that. And Dan Kennedy turns to me and he says, "What does that person? What would make that person think that it was appropriate to call Joe on his cell phone and that he would pick up?" And I thought about it and I said, and especially because we're in a car, and I didn't have an opinion one way or the other. I wasn't putting Joe down because that's who he is. I wasn't putting Dan down because that's who he is. But it was interesting because Joe, because he picked it up, gave up a conversation in the car, gave up something that was probably way better than that phone call. But he didn't differentiate. Dan would say, "You call my assistant, you get an appointment, maybe I'll make an appointment with you, but right now I'm with these people and this is the most important thing." So it's a very interesting thing. It's different strokes for different folks, and no one way is the best way. No one way is the best way, whether you're over-delivering, under-delivering, or everything in between. But it's something to always keep in your mind and think about. And, is this going to be my life? This is my life.
It's probably the 80-20 rule, right? Like, be true to yourself and realize maybe on the ends you could trim a little. Maybe Joe shouldn't have. I probably wouldn't have answered. Not in that crowd.
No, I wouldn't have answered.
I mean, if I'm in that crowd, I'm paying attention. Unless if somebody calls 2-3 times,
I would look and see who it is, and it'd have to be like an emergency.
I'm like, "Excuse me, I got to take this real quick. I'll be right back." But yeah, I see both points, and
I just thought that was an interesting story because it was.
Yeah, so let me get your take on this. This just happened to me last week. So, I'm an affiliate and a licensed reseller of tools like HubSpot, Infusionsoft, ActiveCampaign, Ontraport, Nimble, right? I mean, I've spent time cultivating relationships, thousands of dollars maintaining these platforms, staying current on them, building a team. And this lady that is merely an associate. I mean, I know her. We know one another. We're friends on Facebook. That's how she contacted me. But I haven't seen her in years because it's a networking group in San Diego that I don't go to anymore. She starts messaging me with very detailed questions on which platform to get. And I'm like, "Is this for you or someone else?" "Oh, for someone else." Okay. So I answer her questions, and it's a decent thread. I'm sending links. I'm sending, trying to help, right? Also thinking, all right, well, eventually she's going to pick one of the tools that I work with, and I'm an affiliate, so I'll get a little money. Maybe they buy the free one and they eventually upgrade, but whatever, it's attributed to me. So then I'm like, "So is this for you or a client?" It's just for a client. And I'm like, "Well, if you don't mind, would you mind using my link once we settled on one?" She says, "Oh no, I'm an affiliate of theirs too. Thanks."
Yeah.
Right. So she's picking my brain.
Yeah. That's like picking your pocket.
Her life easier. And the old West, literally just 5 years ago, certainly 10 years ago, I would have replied with something I probably would regret. Then I would unfriend her and block her and blah, blah, blah. But I'm like, you know what? Eventually this will come around.
Right. I believe in serendipitous contributing. So I believe that, and I'm glad you've come around to this because I believe it. And you don't have to agree with me, but I think you would, that you want to contribute. I don't want to overdo it. Like the place where I've kind of cut it is like, if the thread got too long,
right,
I'd say, I can't do this anymore. I charge $1,000 an hour. If you want to get a consulting call, I'll do it. But this is getting too complicated and I don't have time. But I hope this was helpful. That kind of that. So you cut it off.
Right.
But then when you ask about, if you want to ask if you can use your link and she says no, okay, thanks, and good luck with that. And I think that I believe that you put good karma in the world when you do that. I believe that, and I'm not being overly spiritual here, I'm not religious, but I think that that's going to come back, if not from her, it's going to come back from something else. And if you just, maintain that over-delivery mindset, without going overboard. And of course, do as I say, not as I do, because I tend to overdo it usually. But I've gotten better. I've gotten a little better because I started at the other way. I started giving, and I had to pull back. You sound like you started, unfriending and doing that, and now you're giving in a big way. So either way, you've got to come into a middle.
Well, I would always give, but if I got burned, I would burn them back.
Right. So now you're not burning back, which is a much better way to go.
But I won't answer her question next time.
No, definitely not. When she calls next time, you want to answer and say, I don't really have time for this, but if you want to get on my, consultant.
Right. Yeah. Exactly.
But always be cordial. Always, and you gave her good information probably because it probably helped her.
And I helped her narrow it down. She made a decision, right?
Yeah. So she might be able to, really, she would be able to maybe, and if she doesn't, she doesn't. And, but I don't think you have to, they didn't come through, but it's okay because I was coming through for them and it's going to come back to me elsewhere. That's the way I look at it.
Yeah. Yeah. And others, honestly, I think she was a little sneaky in her approach because another friend of mine, he asked a very direct question and I replied, is this a friendly chat or is this a consultation?
Yeah, that's good.
And he said both. I said, okay, we'll start small with the understanding that this is my world. This is how I put food on the table. If it expands, it's got to move to a formal consultation. Yep, no sweat. So I was able to help him in the beginning and that was easy. But he was more direct in the approach.
Yeah, I think it's up to us too on being on the other end to, if you can lay out the ground rules, find out what it is. I had one today. I had a guy who lives fairly locally. He's been following me for a long time. He's doing some copywriting, and out of nowhere, he says he was earnest enough, but he asked me if I could meet him for lunch one day, and I had to politely say, I'm not doing lunch with you. I said it very nicely. I forgot how I said it, and then he came back to me, would you do a call with me? I said, well, I don't have a lot of time, and then I basically said not to show off but I wanted him to put a value on my time because he wasn't putting a value on my time. So I said, I charge $1,000 an hour. It looks like your questions are pretty involved. I think I can give you a 15-minute call, and then I left it at that. If he wants to come back to me and, pay me, that's fine. If he doesn't want to pay me, I'll give him 15 minutes. I think I can help him.
Right.
And we'll go from there. There are a lot of ways to work it out. I see, but in the other extreme of Dan Kennedy will say, which is not wrong, he would never give anybody 15 minutes for free. He never would, you could say he's a mercenary, but he just values his time. Right. And I guess, someone could easily say, I don't value my time well enough. So be it. Be it.
All right, let's get specific, shall we? Are you ready for this?
I'm ready for this.
So, I would always pick like this semi-hypothetical person. It was always a chiropractor. It was a friend of mine. It's in my group as a chiropractor. But another friend of mine is an optometrist here in town. And so he's not famous, right? People aren't flying from New York. Like Beyonce's not coming out to get eyeglasses from him, he could get to that point. Somebody could, right? I remember hearing someone, they were like $600 for a haircut, then $1,200. And like Bill Clinton, I heard had some dude or a lady, I don't know. He held up Air Force One when he was back east to have this lady come cut his hair. I'm like, all right, I guess we could all get to that level.
Right.
But so this guy wants to grow. How would he start? Can a local optometrist use direct mail, direct response marketing to grow his business?
Yeah, I think that, it's the old story of there are a lot of optometrists, there are a lot of dentists, there are a lot of chiropractors. So you want to become you can be a good optometrist, you can get a lot of referrals, you can have a business that way and be somewhat successful. But if you could be somewhat of a trusted advisor as opposed to just an eye doctor, you've got a much better shot at getting customers for the long haul. So what I would suggest, and I think that if he was an optometrist mastermind, just like people who are in lawyers masterminds and HVAC business masterminds, you need to, do a series of things. I don't do this personally, although I do it one-on-one with people in my mastermind. I do have some people in the service businesses. And like, I'll give you a quick example. So if he's skilled, he's maybe not famous, but if he's skilled in his craft, if he can find out some of the things that he knows that other people don't know, or that he can write something that other people won't bother to write, like, the 5 things to know if you might have cataracts in later life, or something like that, a special report, a white paper, or something like that. I think he's got to build, you got to build a list, and you're local. So you got to build a list in a certain geographical area. So it's not that cumbersome because you don't have to go national. And I think building a list is not that hard, but it takes time. You've got to go on, you've got to advertise, and you can do a space ad in the Penny Saver and say, optometrist special report or something like that. You set up a squeeze page so that they go there, they opt in, they get the free report. Then if you can get, even if it's a couple of hundred people on your list, and you blog every week or you send emails every week without selling them anything, you're not selling them right away. It's, the old jab, 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 right hook that Gary Vaynerchuk talks about. And I would I'm not saying do this whole strategy. I'm saying this is the kind of strategy that fits for you, but it's got to be something that differentiates you from the competition. Real estate brokers, if you're a real estate broker and you're sending the postcard with, the houses that have sold in your area, that's one way to do it, but everybody's doing that. Why don't, everybody's going left, time to go right. Come up with something else. Come up with I would, to use direct mail, it might be worth to send to a couple of hundred people a 9x12 envelope with not a sales thing, and you might have something in there that says, by the way, these houses have sold in your area, but the crux of it is content. So you lead with content, and then the sales stuff and the stuff that you're actually selling, whether it's eye care, whether it's real estate, whether it's, back chiropractic, adjustments. And you can offer something. You can offer a free consultation. You can offer a 15-minute, quick thing that might be related to the content. Maybe you have something that's a quick eye test that will determine if you might get cataracts. I'll do that for free. So there's a lot of things that I would do, but it's not just sending out, in the Penny Saver, optometrist call, make an appointment. It's got to be something that no one else is doing. And you can come up with a variety of things, and it usually is linked to some kind of content, value add, something like that. So that's the overview of a quickie thing, but That's the basic strategy. But there's a lot of variations of that. But I think that's how you separate yourself from the competition, because if you need to go to an eye doctor and you don't know anybody, who are you going to go to? Because it might be episodic. You might have a problem, but if you've been on this guy's list for a while, who are you going to go to first? Right. It's like the used car lot. I had a client, not a client, a guy came up to me at an event. He was a used car salesman. He had a lot, and what he would do is he'd send a postcard every week with it's 50-mile radius of his lot, telling them what used cars are in the lot this week. We just got a Chevelle. We just got, a truck. We just got a Jeep. I said, why don't you, to that same list, because it's just the people in his area, why don't you send them a mailing? You're already sending out a postcard. Send out a mailing, maybe in an envelope that says, free report, how to know when a used car salesman is going to rip you off, or what are the tells that a used car salesman is lying, or something like that, and come up with this thing like a report or something, and then have them go to your site, opt in for another report. Then they're on your list. Then you start emailing them every week, and you email them some brief content, and then you can put the used cars that are in your lot. Don't you think if you develop a list like that over time, that when they're ready to buy a used car, because sending them a postcard every week means you have to catch them at the time they're ready to buy a used car. That's like throwing a dart at a board. But this way you can strategically get there, and when they're ready to buy, you've got the episode, and then they're ready to buy. So that's the basic premise, but that's where I would start.
Yeah. Very nice. All right. That's where you start. So where do we end, huh? I got links to your website. I've got links to your book. You mentioned some bonuses and some.
Let me talk about that for a second, because I decided that, a book that's called Overdeliver is.
You better overdeliver.
Overdeliver, right. So I overdelivered on this website, overdeliverbook.com. And what I've got there are 11 amazing bonuses. I have the lost chapters of Overdeliver, which is all the blogs I've written since this book went to press, to the Dan Kennedy swipe file, to the other 400-page swipe file, to Dan Kennedy swipe file. I've got a video of a day that I did with Perry Marshall. That was a $2,500 a day event, and I have the video available. I've got a course that Jay Abraham did that he spent like a couple of $100,000 to put together. He doesn't sell it anymore. How to get to where you want to go. And that is available digitally. I also have 21 keynote speeches that Jay gave on that site. I have 2 books from the 2 direct mail gurus of my career, Gordon Grossman and Dick Benson. Books are out of print, and I have PDFs of both of those books. I've got, what else do I have there?
They just need to go visit to see, because I'm sitting here on the other screen scrolling and scrolling and scrolling.
Yeah, and I've got some really good testimonials for me and my book, because I've got 40 years experience of doing this, and I'm blessed with having those people stick to me and endorse the book. But more so, I think one of the reasons why I also did this site is, I don't know if you saw the movie Coco. It's a Pixar film, it is a kid's film, but it's such a meaningful movie, and I recommend it to everybody. And it's about the Mexican holiday of Dia de Muertos, and that's a day where a couple of days in Mexico where they celebrate the dead. And I say celebrate, not mourn. So they're celebrating people who have died in their life. And I did this site, and there are a lot of people on the site that are alive. There are a couple that are dead. But I decided that, because in Coco, what they did was the premise is that you're not dead when you die. You're not really dead. You're really dead when you're no longer remembered. And so my remembrance of those people that came before me, that I stand on the shoulders of, is so important. So that was the other thing. I wanted to over-deliver on the bonuses just in quantity and quality, but I also wanted to pick people that are my mentors, alive and dead, that I could stand on the shoulders of, and that I'm really proud to, have their stuff on the site. So, the books, and the book's pretty good. I mean, I don't, I'm not going to brag about it, but it's a good book. It's, $17. I think I have a special, well, there's might be a special on the ebook. I don't know. And I have an audio book too. And anyone you buy off that site, you will get all the bonuses. You go to the site, you go to wherever you want to buy the book, come back, put your order number in. But that's my way of building my list. I don't do affiliates, so everybody on my list gets content every Sunday. I will sell educational products to them, and occasionally someone else's product, but it has to be a free, or I don't get any affiliate commissions. But it's a really good list to be on. You won't want to unsubscribe, I don't think. You can if you want to. So go to overdeliverbook.com, buy my book, get all the bonuses. It's a phenomenal package. I'm really proud of it. I'm really proud of the book. And I'm, really happy that, I was able to share some stuff with you today, that some stuff that was in the book, some stuff that's not. But it was really, a really great time talking to you today.
Yeah, I'm loving it. I'm glad we found each other. I've got,
I hope we stay in touch.
Got the page pulled up, and I've had a couple of these guys on the show. I had John Carlton. I think I caught him at a weak moment. He came on a couple years ago. I've had Perry Marshall on. It was funny. I was talking with Perry and talking about swipe files. Man, I owe that guy. I wrote my Infusionsoft book, The Definitive Guide to Infusionsoft, and totally mirrored him, right? From his Definitive Guide to Google AdWords. His was red, mine was green. Of course, totally different topic, but same look and feel. His Google AdWords cheat sheet, I made the Infusionsoft cheat sheet, 100% different content, but I did modules like him, and I bought his white papers course in 2008.
Wow.
And still got it. And
his stuff is so timeless. It's amazing.
Oh yeah. And he offered a free call back then, or you got a consultation as part of it. So, we had talked, and I was telling him that, and he's like, yeah, I don't remember that. Like, yeah, you wouldn't know. You're selling stuff.
He's prominent in my chapter 2, which is about original source. He has a prominent section in there. And because we did a video, I think it's on my website at briankurtz.me, but he did an amazing the thing that's on the Overdeliver book page is a day I did with him, and he talked about his Swiss Army knife on how to write copy, which is incredible. I told you about Maze 2.0, which is incredible. And, I did that session with him in 2013. So that's 6 years ago. It's completely relevant and timeless. So, yeah, I mean, it's, but I think, I know what we got into. When I did the video I did the interview with him, we got into Rasa Reeves. And so there's a whole section in chapter 2 about Rasa Reeves, which is how he's the guy that invented unique selling proposition. So there's a bunch of stuff in my book about that, and I credit Perry. So yeah, he's a gem.
Yeah, I was reading that. I didn't know that guy, and that was from like the 60s, right?
That's right.
So go to the original source.
Go to the original source, and not for nostalgia. You go to the original source so that you can apply it to everything that's state of the art today.
Sure. Amen. All right. Well, I may be in Boston in October. That's as close as I think I might get to Connecticut anytime soon. But if you come to SoCal, let me know.
Okay, I will. And it was a pleasure. I really enjoyed this.
All right. Well, thanks for coming on the show. Have a great day.
You too.
Go a mile deep to find your message. I love what he talked about. Direct response marketing is alive and well. And I say amen. I mentioned Perry Marshall in the last episode. Perry Marshall comes up again today. Super smart guy. Check out his interview on the Sales Podcast. I had him on a couple years ago. But I first bought one of his products in 2008. Perry's just a super smart guy. I actually emulated his Google AdWords cheat sheet for my Infusionsoft cheat sheet and his Google AdWords book, The Definitive Guide to Google AdWords. I created the Definitive Guide to Infusionsoft. So I've been a big fan of his work for a long time. But as you can tell, Brian is legit. He's authentic. He's proven. All right. He knows what he's doing. He's been there. He's got the scars. He's got the experience. Check out his blog. Check out the content he puts out, the advice, the recommendations. Just a super smart guy. And that's the beauty of doing this podcast. I get to speak to people like him and ask them the questions that I have. If you have additional questions about how to grow, come hang out with me at the 30-Day Sales Growth Program, 30daysalesgrowth.com. $49.99 a month right now. So I'm bringing back the live weekly calls, but you can ask your questions in the group. I'll do my best to answer them immediately, but certainly I answer them quickly. If I'm not on a call, I'm supporting my people. So come join us. All right. Thanks for listening. I'll go sell something.